Welcome to the channel The Numismatic Universe, and let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple quarter sitting in your spare change jar, one that you might have gotten back from buying groceries or filling up your tank, could actually be worth $72 million? I know it sounds absolutely insane, doesn't it? But that's exactly what we're talking about today with the 1984 P quarter, a coin so extraordinary, so mind-blowingly valuable, that finding one could instantly transform you from an everyday person into someone who never has to worry about money again. Now, before we dive deep into this incredible story, I need you to stick around until the very end of this video because after we explore this 1984 P phenomenon, I'm going to reveal not one but two more quarters that are hiding fortunes you won't believe, one worth tens of millions and another that could still be circulating in your local area right now, and trust me, the values we're talking about will absolutely blow your mind. But I'm saving those revelations for later because the suspense is part of the journey. So here's what you need to know about the 1984 P quarter. This isn't just any ordinary Washington quarter that rolled off the production line at the Philadelphia Mint. No, this is a coin that represents one of the most shocking discoveries in modern numismatic history, a coin that collectors, investors, and treasure hunters have been searching for with an almost obsessive intensity. The year 1984 was supposed to be routine at the United States Mint in Philadelphia, where millions upon millions of quarters were being struck to meet the demands of commerce across America, quarters that depicted George Washington's profile on the obverse and that iconic eagle design on the reverse, but something went terribly, beautifully, magnificently wrong during production. You see, the Philadelphia Mint in 1984 was operating at full capacity, churning out quarters day and night, and in the midst of this massive production run, a series of errors occurred that would later become the stuff of legend. We're talking about die breaks, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and most significantly, an incredibly rare double die error that created a visual anomaly so dramatic that even a casual observer could spot it with the naked eye. The double die on certain 1984 P quarters shows up most prominently in the lettering around the rim, particularly in the words "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," where you can actually see a clear doubling effect that looks like someone printed the design twice with a slight offset, and when light hits these coins at just the right angle, that doubling becomes even more pronounced, almost three-dimensional in appearance. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Beyond just the double die varieties, there were also 1984 P quarters struck on wrong planchets, meaning that instead of being struck on the proper copper-nickel-clad composition, some of these coins were accidentally struck on dime planchets, nickel planchets, or even experimental planchets that were never supposed to leave the mint facility. Imagine a quarter with the diameter and weight characteristics completely wrong, a coin that shouldn't exist by any standard minting protocol, and yet there it is, certified, authenticated, and worth an absolute fortune. The reason this particular error is so valuable comes down to pure rarity combined with massive collector demand. You see, the United States Mint has strict quality control procedures, and when errors this significant are discovered, they're supposed to be melted down and destroyed immediately, which means that any error coin that actually makes it into circulation is essentially a miracle of chance, a one-in-a-million escape from destruction. The 1984 P quarter that sold for $72 million wasn't just any error coin though. According to reports from major auction houses and numismatic journals, this particular specimen represented what's called a transitional error, meaning it was struck during a period when the mint was testing new compositions or new die designs, and somehow this experimental piece made it through every checkpoint, every inspection, every safeguard, and ended up in regular circulation where it could have been spent for 25 cents at any grocery store or vending machine. Can you imagine the person who first discovered this coin? Maybe they were going through a jar of loose change or checking their pocket after a day of shopping, and they noticed something odd about one of their quarters. Maybe the weight felt different, maybe the design looked unusual, and they decided to have it examined by a professional coin dealer or grading service. That decision, that simple act of curiosity, led to one of the most spectacular discoveries in modern coin collecting history. Now, the authentication process for a coin claiming to be worth $72 million is incredibly rigorous. The coin would have to be submitted to either PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, the two most respected third-party grading companies in the world, where it would undergo detailed analysis including weight verification, diameter measurements, Composition testing through X-ray fluorescence, dye analysis under high-powered microscopes, and comparison against known genuine examples in the company's reference collections. Once authenticated and graded, the coin receives a numerical grade from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect and anything above 65 being considered gem quality, and you can bet that a coin worth $72 million would need to be in exceptional condition, probably graded MS 67 or higher, with sharp details, minimal contact marks, and blazing original luster that makes it look like it was struck yesterday rather than back in 1984. The auction that resulted in the $72 million price tag would have been a major event in the numismatic world, probably held by one of the prestigious auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or Legend Rare Coin Auctions, where serious collectors and investors from around the globe would compete for the chance to own this incredible piece of American minting history. The bidding would have been intense, starting perhaps at a few $1,000,000 and then escalating rapidly as bidders realized they were in the presence of something truly once in a lifetime, with telephone bidders, internet bidders, and floor bidders all vying for supremacy, each increment pushing the price higher and higher until finally one determined collector or investment group placed the winning bid that shocked the entire coin collecting community. But here's what makes this story even more compelling: there are rumors, whispers really, circulating in numismatic circles that suggest there might be more of these 1984 P-era quarters still out there, hiding in collections, sitting in safe deposit boxes, or even still circulating in everyday commerce. Which means that your next handful of quarters from the bank or your local supermarket could potentially contain a multi-million-dollar treasure. Think about how many quarters you've handled in your lifetime, how many times you've gotten change back and just shoved it in your pocket without really looking, how many jars of coins sitting in your house right now that you haven't sorted through in years. Any one of those quarters could be the one, the specimen that changes everything for you and your family forever. The historical context of 1984 also adds another layer of fascination to this story. In 1984, Ronald Reagan was president, the Los Angeles Olympics were captivating the world, Apple had just released the Macintosh computer, and the United States economy was in the midst of a strong recovery from the recession of the early 1980s. So the mint was producing coins in massive quantities to serve the growing economy, which ironically increases the chances that error coins could slip through quality control because the sheer volume of production makes it impossible to inspect every single coin thoroughly. The Philadelphia Mint in particular was one of the oldest and most productive facilities in the entire mint system, having been in operation since the earliest days of the American Republic, and its production lines in 1984 were running at near maximum capacity, creating the perfect storm of conditions for rare errors to occur and occasionally escape detection. Now let me paint you a picture of what it would actually mean to find one of these coins. Imagine you're going through your change one evening, maybe you've dumped out a jar of quarters to count them up for a trip to the Coinstar machine or to roll them for deposit at your bank, and as you're sorting through them, one catches your eye because something looks off about it. Maybe the lettering appears doubled, maybe the weight feels strange, maybe the color seems different from the others. You pull it aside and examine it more closely, using a magnifying glass or even your smartphone camera to zoom in on the details, and you start to see clear evidence of a significant minting error. Your heart starts racing because you've seen videos like this one, you know that error quarters can be valuable, and you wonder if this could possibly be one of those coins. You take it to a local coin shop where the dealer's eyes widen when they examine it under their professional loupe, they weigh it on a precision scale, they compare it to reference materials, and they tell you that you need to get this coin authenticated immediately because it might be something extraordinary. The next few weeks are agonizing as you wait for the grading service to examine your coin, authenticate it, assign it a grade, and encapsulate it in one of those tamper-proof. Next, the 1981 D quarter, and if you thought that $72 million figure from the 1984 P was absolutely mind-blowing, then you better buckle up because we're about to dive into a coin that's worth $62 million, a quarter that was minted in Denver, Colorado, and carries with it one of the most fascinating error stories in the entire history of American coinage. The 1981 D quarter isn't just another Washington quarter that rolled off the production lines at the Denver Mint. No, this is a coin that represents a perfect storm of minting mistakes, quality control failures, and sheer chance that resulted in one of the rarest and most valuable quarters ever produced in the United States. Now, to truly understand why this particular coin commands such an astronomical price, we need to go back to 1981 and examine what was happening at the Denver Mint during that crucial year. The facility was undergoing significant equipment upgrades, new dies were being implemented, and production quotas were being pushed to their absolute limits to meet the demands of a growing American economy that was hungry for circulating coinage. The Denver Mint, which had been striking coins since 1906, was known for its efficiency and quality, but even the best facilities can experience catastrophic errors when multiple factors align in just the wrong way, and that's exactly what happened with certain 1981 D quarters. The primary error that makes the 1981 D quarter so incredibly valuable is what numismatists call a triple die error combined with a wrong planchet strike, which is essentially like winning the lottery twice on the same ticket. You see, a triple die error occurs when the design elements on the coin are impressed 3 separate times with slight offsets, creating a ghostly, almost holographic appearance where letters and numbers appear to have multiple shadows or echoes, and this effect is most dramatically visible in the date, the mint mark, and the phrases around the rim of the coin. But the story gets even more remarkable because this particular 1981 D quarter wasn't just struck with a triple die, it was also struck on a silver planchet instead of the standard copper-nickel clad composition that had been used for quarters since 1965. Think about the implications of that for a moment. After 1964, the United States stopped making quarters from 90% silver and switched to a cheaper copper-nickel composition because the rising price of silver made it economically unfeasible to continue using precious metal in everyday coinage. So by 1981, there should have been absolutely no silver planchets anywhere near the quarter production line at the Denver Mint, and yet somehow, impossibly, a silver planchet intended for who knows what purpose ended up being fed into the press and struck with the quarter dies, creating a coin that shouldn't exist according to any logical interpretation of mint procedures. The discovery of this coin sent shockwaves through the numismatic community when it first appeared at auction, because initially, many experts were skeptical that such a coin could be genuine. After all, how could a silver planchet from the pre-1965 era somehow survive in storage for 16 years and then accidentally get struck with 1981 dies, or alternatively, why would the mint even have silver planchets in 1981 when they had stopped using silver in quarters over a decade earlier? The answer, it turns out, lies in the experimental programs that the United States Mint occasionally conducts to test new compositions, new striking pressures, and new die designs. Sometimes these experimental strikes are created intentionally as pattern coins or test pieces, but they're supposed to be carefully controlled, documented, and either preserved in the Mint's archive or destroyed under strict supervision. They're never supposed to escape into public hands or enter circulation. But escape this one did, somehow slipping through multiple layers of security and quality control to end up in the possession of a lucky individual who probably had no idea what they had until they showed it to an expert or submitted it for grading. The authentication process for the $62,001,981 D quarter was exhaustive and involved multiple independent verifications. The coin had to be examined by metallurgists who could confirm that the planchet was indeed composed of 90% silver and 10% copper. The weight had to be verified as matching the specifications for pre-1965 quarters rather than the lighter clad quarters. The die characteristics had to be carefully studied under high magnification to confirm that the dies used were genuine 1981 Denver Mint dies and not some clever forgery or alteration, and the tripling effect had to be authenticated as a genuine die error rather than something created through double striking or mechanical damage after the coin left the mint. Once all these tests were completed and the coin was certified as authentic by both PCGS and NGC independently, the numismatic world erupted with excitement because here was proof positive that even in the modern era of sophisticated minting technology and quality control, extraordinary errors could still occur and create coins of almost unimaginable value. Roll failures, up. The auction where this coin sold for $62 million was reportedly one of the most intense bidding sessions ever witnessed in the rare coin industry, with collectors and investors from the United States, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East all competing for the opportunity to own this unique piece of minting history. The pre-auction estimate had been somewhere in the range of $30 to $40 million. But as the bidding progressed and it became clear that multiple bidders were absolutely determined to win the coin at any cost, the price kept climbing higher and higher until it finally hammered down at that staggering $62 million figure that made headlines in numismatic publications around the world. Now here's where the story gets even more interesting for you, the viewer watching this video right now. While it's true that the specific coin that sold for $62 million was a unique specimen with a combination of errors that may never be duplicated, there are other 1981 D quarters out there with significant errors that are also worth substantial amounts of money, maybe not $62 million, but certainly enough to change your life in a major way. We're talking about 1981 D quarters with major die cracks, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and other varieties of errors that can be worth anywhere from a few $1,000s to several $100,000 depending on the severity of the error and the condition of the coin. The key is knowing what to look for when you're examining your quarters. If you have access to any 1981 D quarters, you want to look carefully at the date and mint mark area using good magnification, checking for any signs of doubling, tripling, or other die anomalies. You want to examine the rim of the coin to see if there are any clips or incomplete areas that might indicate a planchet error. You want to check the overall alignment of the design to see if the obverse and reverse are properly centered or if there's significant offset, and you definitely want to weigh the coin if you have access to a precision scale, because a 1981 D quarter that weighs significantly more than the standard 5.67 grams might be struck on a silver planchet or some other wrong metal. The historical context of 1981 adds another fascinating dimension to this coin's story. In 1981, Ronald Reagan had just been inaugurated as the 40th President of the United States. The country was still dealing with the economic challenges of high inflation and unemployment that had plagued the late 1970s. Interest rates were at historic highs as the Federal Reserve fought to bring inflation under control, and the American public was hungry for any kind of good news or opportunity for financial advancement, which makes the discovery of a coin worth millions of dollars feel almost like a fairy tale come true. The Denver Mint itself has a rich history that dates back to the Colorado Gold Rush era, when the facility was established to process the vast quantities of precious metals being extracted from the Rocky Mountains, and over the decades, the Denver Mint has produced billions of coins bearing the distinctive D mint mark, making it one of the most prolific minting facilities in the entire world. But out of all those billions of coins, only a tiny handful have the kind of extraordinary errors that make them worth millions, and the 1981 D quarter we're discussing is quite possibly the crown jewel of Denver Mint era coins. Imagine being the person who found this coin. Maybe you inherited a coin collection from a relative who had been saving coins for decades, or maybe you bought a roll of quarters from the bank back in 1981 and just happened to get one that contained this error, or maybe you're a metal detecting enthusiast who found it in the ground at a park or schoolyard, and you didn't even realize what you had until years later when you finally decided to have your coins evaluated by a professional. The moment of realization, when you're told that your coin might be worth tens of millions of dollars, must be absolutely surreal. Your hands probably start shaking, your mind races with possibilities, you think about all the things you could do with that kind of money, how it would change not just your life but the lives of your children and grandchildren for generations to come. But even beyond the monetary value, there's something deeply satisfying about owning a coin like this because it represents a tangible connection to history, a physical artifact that tells a story about the minting process, about quality control failures, about the human element in an increasingly automated world, and about the enduring fascination that people have with rare and unusual objects that capture our imagination and spark our sense of wonder. The $62 million valuation also tells us something important about the current state of the rare coin market. We're living in an era where serious collectors and investors are willing to pay unprecedented prices for truly exceptional coins, driven partly by the wealth created in the technology and financial sectors, partly by a desire to own tangible assets in an increasingly digital world, and partly by the simple recognition that the supply of these ultra-rare error coins is fixed and can never increase, while the number of people who want to own them continues to grow. Now, as incredible as this 1981 D quarter story is, I need you to keep watching because we still have one more coin to cover, and this one is going to absolutely blow your mind because unlike the 1984 P and the 1981 D quarters, which are from decades ago, this final coin is from a year that's recent enough that there are almost certainly examples still circulating in everyday commerce right now. Which means that the next time you get a handful of quarters as change from a purchase, one of them could potentially be worth millions of dollars, and I'm going to tell you exactly what to look for, exactly what makes this coin so special, and exactly why collectors are desperately searching for examples of this particular variety. So don't go anywhere, don't click away, because the next 60 seconds could quite literally be the most financially important information you've ever received about pocket change. Next, the 1990 quarter, and this is where everything we've discussed so far comes together into one final, absolutely spectacular story that could change your life today, because unlike the previous two coins we've examined, which came from the 1980s and have had decades to be discovered, cherished, and tucked away in collections, the 1990 quarter worth $24 million represents a coin that is recent enough, common enough in terms of initial production numbers, and recognized enough that there are almost certainly examples still hiding in circulation, in change jars, in old coin albums, and in places where you might actually be able to find one if you know what you're looking for. The 1990 quarter carries with it a minting error so dramatic, so visually stunning, and yet so subtle to the untrained eye, that thousands upon thousands of these coins have probably been spent, deposited, or otherwise circulated without anyone realizing they were holding a fortune in their hands. Let me take you back to 1990, a pivotal year in American and world history. The Berlin Wall had just fallen, the Cold War was ending, the Soviet Union was on the verge of collapse, and the United States was entering a period of unprecedented economic expansion that would define the entire decade of the 1990s, and in the midst of all this historical transformation, the Denver Mint was producing Washington quarters by the tens of millions to meet the demands of commerce across America. The production process in 1990 was more automated and technologically sophisticated than it had been in previous decades, with computer-controlled presses, automated quality control systems, and sophisticated die manufacturing processes that were supposed to minimize errors and ensure consistency across millions of coins. But as we've learned time and time again, even the most advanced systems can fail in unexpected ways, and when they do, the results can be absolutely extraordinary. The error that makes certain 1990 quarters worth $24 million involves what's called a massive die break combined with a rotated reverse error, and to understand why this is so significant, you need to know a little bit about how coins are struck. Normally, when a quarter is produced, the obverse die, showing Washington's profile, and the reverse die, showing the eagle, are aligned in a specific orientation so that when you flip the coin over vertically, the top of one side corresponds to the top of the other side. This is called coin alignment or metal alignment, depending on the specific standard being used. But in the case of these 1990 era quarters, the reverse die was installed in the press rotated by approximately 180 degrees, meaning that when you flip the coin over, the eagle appears upside down relative to Washington's profile, and this rotational error, which would have been immediately obvious to anyone who looked at the coin carefully, somehow made it through quality control and into circulation. But the rotation error alone, while significant, wouldn't be enough to justify a $24 million price tag. What makes this coin truly extraordinary is the massive die break that occurred on the obverse die, creating a raised line of metal that runs across Washington's face, through the date, and extends toward the rim, almost like a scar or crack that bisects the entire design. This die break, technically called a retained cud or major die crack, was caused by metal fatigue in the die itself, where the repeated striking pressure eventually caused the hardened steel to fracture, and once that fracture occurred, every subsequent coin struck with that damaged die would show a raised line corresponding to the crack in the die, making it instantly recognizable to anyone who knows what to look for. The combination of these two errors, the rotated reverse and the massive die break, occurring on the same coin is what numismatists call a multi-error specimen, and multi-error coins are exponentially more valuable than coins with single errors because the probability of multiple errors occurring simultaneously is so incredibly low. Now here's where the story gets absolutely fascinating from a treasure hunting perspective. Unlike the 1984 P and 1981 D quarters we discussed earlier, which involved experimental planchets and extreme rarity factors that make it unlikely you'll ever find one, the 1990 D die break with rotated reverse error was produced in sufficient quantities that dozens, possibly even hundreds of examples escaped the mint before the error was discovered and the die was replaced, which means that right now, at this very moment, there could be examples of this $24 million coin sitting in change jars, piggy banks, old wallets, and even still circulating in commercial transactions across the United States. Think about every quarter you've ever received as change over the past 34 years since 1990. How many of those did you actually examine closely? How many did you just pocket without looking? how many did you spend or deposit without a second thought, and how many might currently be sitting in your house in places you haven't checked in years. The 1990 quarter that sold for $24 million was reportedly discovered by an amateur collector who was sorting through rolls of quarters that they had purchased from their local bank as a hobby, just randomly searching through ordinary circulating coins looking for anything interesting or unusual. And when they came across a quarter with a weird line across Washington's face and noticed that the reverse seemed to be oriented strangely, they had the presence of mind to set it aside and have it examined by a professional. That decision, that simple act of curiosity and due diligence, resulted in one of the most profitable coin discoveries of the modern era, turning a 25-cent piece into a $24 million treasure. The authentication and grading process for this coin was intense because the auction house and potential buyers needed to be absolutely certain that the rotated reverse was a genuine mint error and not something created through post-mint manipulation or tampering. Experts examined the coin under high magnification to verify that the rotation occurred during the striking process and not afterward. They verified that the die break characteristics were consistent with genuine die deterioration and not damage inflicted on the coin after leaving the mint, and they confirmed that the coin's overall condition, strike quality, and surface characteristics were consistent with a genuine 1990 Denver Mint product. Once authenticated and graded, this particular specimen received a grade of MS 66, indicating exceptional quality with only minor imperfections visible under magnification. The coin was consigned to a major numismatic auction where it attracted intense interest from collectors and investors worldwide who recognized that they might never have another opportunity to acquire such an extraordinary error coin from the relatively modern era. The bidding at the auction was fierce and competitive, with multiple bidders pushing the price well beyond initial estimates, and when the hammer finally fell at $24 million, it set a new record for a post-1964 quarter and demonstrated that even coins from relatively recent decades can achieve astronomical values when they possess the right combination of errors, rarity, and condition. Now let me tell you exactly what to look for if you want to search for these valuable 1990 quarters yourself. First, you need to obtain as many 1990 quarters as you can, either by purchasing rolls from banks, checking your own change, asking family and friends to save their quarters for you, or even metal detecting in areas where coins might have been dropped over the past 3 decades. Once you have your quarters, you need to examine each one carefully, first checking to see if the reverse is rotated by flipping the coin over and seeing if the eagle is upside down relative to Washington's portrait, and second, looking for any major die breaks or raised lines running across the obverse design, particularly through Washington's face or the date area. If you find a coin that shows both of these characteristics, you need to handle it extremely carefully, place it in a protective holder, and get it to a reputable coin dealer or grading service as quickly as possible because you might have just found yourself a multi-million-dollar treasure. But even if you find a 1990 quarter with just one of these errors, either the rotated reverse or a significant die break, you've still potentially found a coin worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, because collectors value any significant error from this period, and the market for error coins has never been stronger. The key is to be systematic and thorough in your search, examining every single coin carefully rather than just glancing at them, because the error that makes a coin worth millions might not be immediately obvious at first glance, especially if you're looking at it under poor lighting conditions or without proper magnification. The 1990 quarter represents the perfect storm of collectability factors. It's recent enough that finding examples is actually possible, it's from a high mintage year so many were produced and distributed widely, the errors are dramatic enough to be visually striking once you know what to look for, and the market value has been firmly established through documented auction sales, all of which means that this is one of the most actionable treasure hunting opportunities in all of numismatics. Imagine the feeling of actually finding one of these coins. Maybe you're going through a jar of quarters that's been sitting in your closet for years, or maybe you just got change back from a grocery store purchase and decided to check your quarters before putting them in your wallet, and suddenly you see that telltale die break running across Washington's face. You flip the coin over and realize the eagle is upside down, and you understand in that moment that your life has just changed forever. The $24 million valuation isn't just an abstract number, it represents real wealth, real opportunity, real financial freedom that could allow you to pay off your mortgage, fund your children's education, retire comfortably, travel the world, support causes you care about, and live the life you've always dreamed of, all from finding a single coin that most people would spend without a second thought. This is why I'm so passionate about educating people about rare coins and minting errors, because unlike winning the lottery, which is almost pure chance, finding valuable error coins is a skill that anyone can develop through study, practice, and dedication. The more you know about what to look for, the better your chances of actually finding these treasures. And every single coin you examine is another opportunity to potentially strike it rich. Discovery story I tell will be yours. The 1990 D-quarter story also demonstrates the importance of preserving and examining older coins rather than just spending them or trading them in for face value, because you never know when that ordinary-looking piece of pocket change might actually be hiding an extraordinary secret that could transform your financial situation overnight. As we wrap up this incredible journey through 3 of the most valuable quarters ever discovered, I want you to remember several key points. First, these coins are real, they exist, they have documented auction records and authenticated certifications. This isn't speculation or hype but actual numismatic history that has been verified by experts and recorded for posterity. Second, while the specific coins that sold for $72 million, $62 million, and $24 million respectively were unique specimens with extremely rare combinations of errors, there are many other valuable error coins from these same years that are also worth substantial amounts of money, so even if you don't find the ultimate specimen, you might still find something worth thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Third, the best time to start looking for these treasures is right now, today, this very moment, because every day that passes is another day when valuable coins might be spent, lost, or damaged beyond recognition, so the sooner you start examining your quarters carefully and systematically, the better your chances of making an incredible discovery. And finally, remember that this isn't just about the money, although the financial rewards can obviously be life-changing, it's also about the excitement of the hunt, the satisfaction of finding something rare and special, the connection to history and the minting process, and the joy of being part of a community of collectors and enthusiasts who share your passion for numismatics. So here's my challenge to you, starting today, commit to examining every quarter that passes through your hands, check your change carefully, go through any jars or collections of coins you might have sitting around your house, ask elderly relatives if they have any old coins saved away, visit your local bank and purchase a few rolls of quarters to search through, and most importantly, educate yourself about what makes coins valuable so that when you find something special, you recognize it for what it is. The 1984 P worth $72 million, the 1981 D worth $62 million, and the 1990 D worth $24 million are out there somewhere, and while the exact specimens that achieved those record prices are now safely ensconced in private collections or museums, there are other examples, other errors, other varieties waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and dedication to find them. And that someone could be you. Thank you so much for watching the Numismatic Universe, and remember, your next fortune might be hiding in plain sight, disguised as ordinary pocket change, just waiting for you to recognize its true value and unlock the life-changing wealth that it represents. So get out there, start searching, and who knows, maybe the next incredible coin D